proud of the guys that we were able to hang in and find a way to win the game. A lot of credit to Temple. You know, we jumped out to an early lead, and they stayed the course and made some changes defensively, went to some zone, and we got a little stagnant on offense, and it started to affect our defense, and they did a good job taking advantage of that, and it wound up being a really close game for a long time, certainly closer than the final score would indicate, and proud that we found a way to get the job done. And it was another in a long line of experiences that this team has had this season that we can grow from.
You mentioned the fast start. You got out 15-0. Was there something different in your pregame speech tonight?
No. This group is, you know, what I said in the postgame was that we're becoming one of the more connected teams that I've been around, and that's enjoyable to see young people. You know, locked in together, trying to accomplish something together. That's fun to see with young people. And as we're developing into a more and more connected team, you get tested. And tonight was a test of that. And I thought, you know, we allowed our juice and energy to be affected by the fact that the game didn't continue to go the way that it started. And that somebody spoiled our little party. And I think there's some growth inside of that you can't start playing the score. You know, we say all the time that there's a difference between assuming and expecting. And if you go into a game assuming that it's going to go by a certain script and it doesn't go that way, but that's really a sign of teams that aren't prepared. And preparation creates tremendous expectations, and that's what we're developing. But I think when the score got up, we started assuming how the rest of the script was going to play out. And when it didn't, it took some of the energy that we started the game with, and it was a good lesson for us because the juice on the bench and in the huddles, if you watch some of our games, even when you watch on TV, you see a bench that is so engaged and a group that's out there talking. And we lost some of that today when things weren't going according to script, and we got to be better than that.
At the same time, it also didn't really look like there was too much panic. Kind of seemed like they were able to refocus either on the bench or on the court with each other. Just what does that say about the group that they didn't freak out that Temple got back in it? They just kind of went back to work.
Yeah, you know, we talked a lot about they got talent, and they got the new first-year coach. I mean, we went through that, and there's a lot of guys there. But I would also say it's a credit to several guys during the flow of the game. Sam kept his poise. His voice was still strong. Chuck played with poise and composure and made some big shots and some big plays. And Zurich didn't get anxious about the fact that the zone and the way they were playing, he wasn't touching the ball as much as he normally does, and he didn't overreact to that, and so there was a sequence or two down the stretch where his presence became vital to the outcome. So I would agree that there wasn't a lot of panic there, but they weren't playing with the same amount of joy and enthusiasm.
You mentioned Zurich. Chuck was talking about the defense that Temple ran and how it was designed to keep the ball away from Zurich a little bit.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if he was frustrated, but how encouraging is it for you if your leading scorer gets held to 7 points and you still come away with a win?
Yeah, you know what, I think it's great. If you think about it, we only had one guy in double digits in the Memphis game, and we had a great opportunity at the end of the game, and the double digits guy, I think, was Tyreek. So there's a lot of ways to get it done, and that's kind of speaks to the point I was making about how connected we've become, because I don't think Zurich or Chuck or Sam or anybody cares who gets the credit or who has the best stat line on a given night, as long as we win. And so that's why I'm encouraged by the direction that we're headed.
BJ gets into double figures, leads the team in assists and steals. What have you seen from him over his process of just growing as a player?
Yeah, getting more and more comfortable with the flow of the game, and scouting, and and some of the things, because just instinctively, he's just a gifted guy who can really do some dynamic things on the court, and he's just scratching the surface right now. But there was a sequence late in the game, midway through the second half, where he had several plays that led to a critical burst for us that was necessary, and probably should have had him in there a few more minutes later in the game because he's a good free throw shooter and one of our better ball handlers. He had one turnover that I wasn't happy with, but in general, you can see his growth. He's just getting better and better, and the game is starting to slow down for him. And I do think he's going to play his best basketball as we get later into the year.
With that, just the spark that Ricardo kind of continues to give, he makes the most of the time he gets out there on the court.
Yeah. Ricardo is he's a gamer, and he's definitely a shot maker, and he's got a fearless approach to making shots, and he knows I believe in that part of his game, and but he's been fully engaged too. When you're a coach, you stand up in front of the group a lot. I know they're tired of hearing me, but you look in their eyes a lot, and I just see something different when I look at Ricardo now. I think he's really, that's not to say that there was anything bad. I just think you could just see the growth and the engagement and the desire to win, and I'm just really proud of his growth here down the stretch.
Kind of building off BJ's development over the course of a season, and especially in league play, how important is it to see guys continue to be fighting for those minutes and not know that the lineup is set and that the minutes are divvied out ahead of time and things like that? They know that they can earn those opportunities.
Yeah, I think it's also a feel sometimes. Like this is 2 games in a row where Emory didn't play in the second half. And there's been some games where that's been flipped, because he can be so good and so energetic defensively that I defer to him. I don't have to worry as much about him. Like he really does get this whole team thing. He gets it. But sometimes as a coach, you lean towards other guys and you trust your gut on who should be on the floor at certain times, and it goes back to what I was saying about how connected we're becoming, because there'll be times where BJ's out there finishing the game. There's times where Jalen is out there finishing the game. And that's just a gut feeling in the moment that we're making, and you need the guys to trust you on that and not let their emotions, dictate the way they feel about what's going on. And I think there's a lot of trust inside of our team when it comes to that. And and I'm talking about within the last, couple of weeks. I'd look in some guys' eyes late in the game 3-4 weeks ago, and that wasn't the case. So I think we're growing in a lot of ways there, and I think BJ's a great example of that. And but on down the line for sure.
You mentioned earlier Sam kept his voice up. He also helped you finish the first half strong, give you the lead back going into halftime, started the second half strong. Just how big was him kind of taking control a little bit at some points, finished with, a double-double with 12 rebounds out there?
Yeah, anytime Sam has that kind of performance, I'm particularly happy because he works so hard. And for him to have the poise and the wherewithal to step into that situation when it was really needed, it was good for us, but I think it was really good for him because he's that player. That's who he is, and he knows it. And when he's not playing like that, he goes to a place that, like he really wants to be good. He really puts the time in and works at it, and he knows that he has that in him. And so I was happy to see him perform like that for us, because that is who he is as a player, and I think there's more of that. We can expect more of that going forward.
You've talked in the past about how there's obviously a lot more on a stat sheet than just points, and I'm curious how much stock you and your staff put in the plus-minus stat, because your starters were plus 93, and your bench was on the other side minus 28. And I know every game's different and there are circumstances depending on what the opponent does, but I'm just curious how you read the plus-minus stat and what that gives you in your evaluation.
I don't put a whole lot of stock in it. There's some times where it's just obvious that a group is hurting the team or an individual might be hurting the team. And I would know that without looking at the stats. Sometimes it's happenstance. A guy might be doing a heck of a job, but he's on the floor with a team when the team's not. And so I think you got to be careful and you got to trust your eyes and what you see. And I think if you just looked at the stats and judge your guys by it, you can make a lot of mistakes that way. But you know, we got some depth and we got some strength in our numbers. I think that's part of what makes us a team that's improving. And so I think that's one stat that you got to be careful putting too much stock into.
Free throws tonight were huge. You know, coming off
Yeah, it was big.
a Memphis game where it wasn't great. You've had two of your better free throw shooting games the last couple times out.
Yeah, I took over free throw responsibilities as a coach the last 2 games. If you see the free throw numbers go down, it means I've handed it over to Crider. I was proud of that. In particular, in the preseason, Keon was on fire from the free throw line. And then he went through a stretch where he was struggling. And I think one of the best moments of the game is for him to be standing up there at the free throw line with no one there on the inflatement foul call, for him to knock both of those down. That was really cool because, you know, I would say the same thing about Keon that I said about Sam. He works at it. I mean, he really puts time in. He's going to be the first guy in there. He's going to be there after practice. Keon has a passion to be a good player. And so seeing him struggle from the free throw line is tough to watch sometimes because I know how much this all means to him. And so for him to step up with no one on the line like that and knock those both down, that he deserves that. He works so hard.